What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for some more content for you guys, and today we're going to be looking at the season as a whole, and we're going to be doing our player ratings, our season player ratings. A lot to get through, so let's get straight into it, and let's start off with Hugo Lloris. 8 all round from us. I think he's had a stellar season, 16 clean sheets throughout the Premier League as well, which is a record for him and for Tottenham Hotspur, I believe, in the Premier League era. So I think on a whole, he's had a really strong season in goal. And I think he's improved facets of his game, like coming for crosses, being a bit more commanding. And yeah, so I think a really good season from him.
Yeah, I'm very happy with Hugo Lloris. I think haven't been too many mistakes as well from him, which you know, people have been criticising him in the past. I think he's been one of the most consistent goalkeepers in the Premier League this season. Definitely since Conte's come in as well, there's also been improvements. As you say, he's definitely been a bit more aerially commanding than before. And I think he signed the new contract for a reason, because we fully believe that he's still in playing at the top level. So I'm glad he's going to be here for another 2 years, and I think it's one of his best seasons for Tottenham.
Absolutely. Let's move on to the sub goalkeeper, which was Pierre Luigi Gallini. Sim gives him a 5, I gave him a 4. Didn't play that many games. When he did come in, didn't really fill me with much confidence, but not really much to say on him because he didn't really play that much. Yeah,
I think when it comes to Gallini, he obviously had that bad mistake against Chelsea, which stands out as a moment which was not very good. He played a few Conference League games, didn't have too much to do in those games, but also wasn't especially brilliant. Obviously, he had a brilliant pre-season when he had that great game against Chelsea. Everyone thought we'd signed a great keeper, but yeah, he's going back. He looks like he's going to go back to Atalanta, and I don't think he's had the greatest of times here. So I don't think we've seen too much of him to criticise him too much, but whenever we have seen him, has been great.
All right, let's move on to the defenders now. Let's start off with Eric Dier. Sim gives him a 9. I gave him an 8. I think maybe somewhere in the middle, maybe 8.5 is a bit more fair on my part. But I think that he's had a stellar season, Eric Dier. He's been an absolute man mountain at the back, really performed in the big games as well. Aerially, really strong. Passing ability has been completely on show this season as well. And it showed when he was out the team for a little bit. The team just looked completely lost at the back with no sort of leadership skills, which he's brought in abundance. And if he hadn't been there this season, I dread to think where our defensive kind of nous would be at. But I think Eric Dier is probably his strongest season at centre-back ever, and maybe a stronger season at Spurs since he's joined too.
Definitely. And I think he's been our most important defender this season for me. I think he's the glue that sticks the links the back three together. He's the one that we've missed the most whenever he's been out. I think it's not just his aerial ability, which is very crucial. I think positionally he's improved a lot of his game. He's cut out those... look, he still has a few errors like on the last day against Norwich and stuff like that, but they're definitely a lot less than they were last season. And I just think the most important thing he brings to our back line is leadership and telling people where to be and making sure that everyone's doing their job, and I think he's done a very, very good job at that. And I think for sure at centre back he's been getting better and better, because you've got to remember he only started playing centre back in 2020, so he's had a couple years there now, because he was centre mid for a number of years, and I think this is his best season in a long, long time. Definitely his best season since he had that first year at centre mid under Poch. That was, you know, he was very good back then, and this is probably his best season since then. And I think he's come on strength for strength, and I think he's been brilliant, and I can't fault him for a lot of the stuff. So that's why I gave him a 9.
Yeah, and credit where credit's due as well, because a lot of people would have been happy to see the back of him at the end of last season, and he's come in, put those worries aside, and Spurs fans are very happy with him. So.
And what did Conte say? He said he could be one of the best centre-backs in this position in the world, and we all laughed at him when he said that, because it was very early on in his tenure. But, I mean, I'm still laughing. I'm not saying he could be one of the best in the world, but you got to say he's proved everyone wrong in terms of how good he's been. So, we wouldn't be in the Champions League without him for me.
Let's move on to Cuti Romero. Sim gives him an 8. I gave him a 9. Obviously, he has had his injury problems this season, which has held him back somewhat. But since he's come into the side in terms of regular performances, he's been night and day, in my opinion, head and shoulders above any of our defenders that we've had. The way he's aggressive, the way he steps up to the midfield, the way he joins the attack, I think he's revolutionised that back line, and I'm so happy to have him. And I think the ceiling that he has is unbelievable. And when Conte was talking about Dier, saying Eric Dier could be one of the best centre-backs in the world, Romero can really be one of the best centre-backs in the world.
I think, Romero for me, the reason I gave Dier a high rating is just because I think Dier's been more important to us this season than Romero. Romero has been amazing. I think Romero is a better player than Dier, no doubt about it. I think he's a better centre-back. But I think Romero this season, when he was out for 3 months, Sanchez came in and we were still fairly solid at the back. And I didn't think we missed him as much as we missed Dier when he was out. I think Romero, though, has had an unbelievable first season, considering he's had injury problems and he's had to adapt to a new league, and he's had 2 different managers as well. Even you've got to remember, under Nuno, he was also pretty good when he did play the few times that he played under Nuno. And I think he's been a breath of fresh air in the Spurs back line. You have to say that his aggressiveness, his proactiveness, which is a crucial thing, and his ability to play out the back, have that calmness. He'll do a pirouette inside his own 6-yard box. He doesn't care. Nothing phases him.
As well.
And nothing phases him. It's absolutely brilliant. But I just feel like he's got so much more to give, Romero, going into next season, and I can't wait for it. I'm all here for it. So brilliant first season for Romero, and I can't wait for more of him.
Yeah, and I'm loving that kind of facet to his game, that kind of shithousery. When Maguire was on the floor, and there was so many different moments throughout the season where he just shows that kind of South American shithousery, which I absolutely love. You don't love being against it, but when it's for you, it's a completely different story. So big up Kuti. Next up is Ben Davis, the left centre-back for the majority of the season. We've both given him an 8, and you've got to say he's been, in my opinion, our most improved player this season. Left centre-back, I think that he's shown quite a bit of leadership skills at the back as well. When Conte first came here and Romero wasn't in the side, he was the one taking on the kind of going forward and really adding to the attack. Obviously, when Romero came in, he didn't do it as much, but I think he's been absolutely levels above what he's ever been. His best season in the Spurs shirt by far. And yes, maybe we do need someone to kind of fight him for that role at left centre-back, because I don't think he can do it all on his own next season. But he's had a brilliant season. Yeah.
Massive credit to Ben Davis. I've always thought that role was his best role, and I'm so happy that Conte's realised that. And it was pretty much from his first game he put Ben Davis there, and he's never looked back, has he? I think he's been so consistent, barely put a foot wrong, barely had a bad game, since moving to left centre back. I think he's been one of our most consistent performers. I think that he's really added things to his game, and he helps out the left back. He gets forward as well. I think positionally he's absolutely brilliant. I think he plays that role really well for Wales as well, and he's shown that he's very good in that role for Tottenham. I think at this stage of his career, late 20s, I don't think he has the energy anymore to be a modern day fullback that you need to be, and I think this role is absolutely perfect for him, and I think he's been absolutely brilliant. Going into next season, he definitely needs more competition for his place, but it's amazing that we're saying that it's not a foregone conclusion that he's not in the first team next season, because he's been absolutely brilliant and he deserves a lot of recognition for his performance. So big up to Ben Davis.
Absolutely. Let's move on to Davinson Sanchez. Sim gives him a 7. I gave him a 6. Look, I think when called upon, he has done a job a lot of the times he's come in, but there was that kind of period maybe at the beginning stages of Conte's career, and there was a bit of a period under Nuno as well where he flattered to deceive, especially when we had that period of that back three of Tanganga, Sanchez and Ben Davis, I think it was. So there were periods where he was definitely found wanting on the ball. I don't think he's good enough for a Conte system, but if you're looking at solely defensive display, I think he's been all right this season. He's actually proved a few people wrong when stepping in, especially the last couple of games of the season when Romero was out. Everyone was like, oh my God, what are we going to do? But he come in and done a really good job. So I'm going to give him a 6, maybe a 6.5, something like that.
Yeah, I think he's been solid. Last season, I thought he was pretty atrocious for a lot part of the season. But this season, I think he's been a lot more consistent in his performance. Look, he still has his deficiencies. We all know about it. He hasn't improved that much on that side. But I think being in a back three has helped him. I think that there's a lot less pressure on him when we are in a back three. And I think his pace as well has definitely helped bail out defence a number of times. I think he started the season actually under Nuno very well. I remember first game against Man City, he was absolutely brilliant. Everyone was waxing lyrical about him. And the reality is, first 3 games, last 3 games, we kept 6 clean sheets. He played in all of them. I think when Romero was out, he was pretty consistent as well, although he's not on the same level as Romero. So yeah, he did have a few iffy games around the January time, December, January time. But I think by and large, he's been fairly consistent when called upon. So I gave him a 7. I was pretty happy with Sanchez overall for his ability.
In terms of Sanchez, I was actually thinking about this last night. I was actually making big plans for our transfer window last
after
night.
the 150 million.
Yeah, and I was thinking about which of the defenders we want to sell, and I actually earmarked Sanchez as staying in the summer to play that kind of backup role for Christian Romero. So it's interesting.
Yeah, he could, because if we sign one who plays centre and one who plays left, then Sanchez could definitely on the right. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be with his performances. I wouldn't be that against it.
Let's move on to Japhet Tanganga. Sim gives him a 5. I gave him a 4. And I was actually quite disappointed with Tanganga this season. He had quite a bit of playing time at the beginning under Nuno, and also when we had all those injuries in December, January time under Conte. And I felt like he only had a handful of good games this season. And I think that he let occasions overrule him. He looked sometimes he just looked really out of his depth in some of the games, especially games that I can remember against Chelsea. And I feel like he needs to be doing a lot better, I'm afraid. And I think that maybe his development has been stunted a bit without him getting a loan deal or anything like that. And I think he needs to go out on loan and get a really good amount of game time behind his back, maybe play consistently over the whole course of a season instead of just the bit part role. But when he has come in, I haven't been impressed really.
Yeah, he started the season with an unbelievable performance against Man City, and you're thinking he was about to go out on loan before that. So then all of a sudden everything changed and he was part of the Spurs 11. And then unfortunately that's where his season peaked, because literally the next game he was getting roasted by Adama Traore. Then he didn't quite recover from that brilliant first game of the season. He never really got as good as that. He really struggled when we went into when he was in the back 3 in January, but you could say it's because he wasn't with Romero or Dier. But the fact of the matter is, when he was called upon, he struggled. When he had to play right wing back as well, I never thought he was that great there.
He never really looks comfortable there, does he?
No, I don't really I don't think he's the best offensive wing back, which you need to be in the Conte system. So it was either playing in the centre back role or I don't really like him in the wing back. So. Look, he's still young, still got time on his side, but he is getting on a bit now. Must be 22 now, so
he's getting on.
No, in terms of he's not a youngster anymore. You know what I mean? He's not. I'm not saying he's getting old.
As a defender, he's fairly young.
I'm saying he's got time. I just said he's got time on his side, but it's not like we can call him a youngster anymore, where he's 18 or 19. He's getting into his 20s and he start getting regular game time, and maybe it's time for him. I don't know whether it's going to be at Spurs at this point now, because he never quite gets a run in the team. No manager seems to trust him fully to really give him a proper run, and I don't think he's shown the quality that we'd hoped he would at this stage. Doesn't mean he never will, but maybe he does need a loan move for next season.
Yeah, and obviously injuries hold him back a lot
massively,
as well. He gets a lot of injuries, so I'd like to see him get a loan move next season and see where it goes. But let's move on. Let's talk about Joe Rhoden now. Both of us giving him a 4. I mean, just didn't get on the pitch enough. I mean, no manager seems to give him the trust. You talk about Tanganga. I mean, Rhoden is like way more than Tanganga in terms of trust from managers. He got 10 appearances this season in all competitions, 3 of them being in the Premier League. And look, every time he's come in, I don't think he's been a disaster, but he just doesn't pull up any trees and doesn't really impress anyone. So I think it's time for him to move on this summer. It seems like it was a bad transfer. Yeah,
he's been here 2 years and he barely gets a run. As you say, I don't give him a 4 because he's been bad. I just give him a 4 because he hasn't been involved anywhere near enough. And he was brought in as a potential up-and-coming centre-back who had a high ceiling, but he hasn't shown... I don't think he's shown too bad, but he hasn't been brilliant either. So I guess the managers don't think he's up to the task right now, and he's not ready to be part of being a team challenging for top four and stuff like that. He's just not at that level, and so it's a shame from that point of view. But if it's been 2 years now and he still can barely get an appearance, that probably says more about him than anything else. So, yeah, see what we can get from him this summer, I would say. Or look, even if it is a loan deal, I wouldn't be against a loan deal, but if we can get money for him, then I think take it.
Yeah, and you talk about Tanganga getting a bit older. He's 24, Joe Rhoden.
So he definitely needs time.
And also, like, it says a lot to me when Conte, right from the off, said that he sees Rhoden as a Eric Dier kind of competition and the one that sits in the centre. And when Eric Dier was out injured, he didn't get the game time, did he? He pushed Sanchez in the middle, he didn't put Sanchez in. He put Romero in the middle. He just didn't put Rhoden in the middle. Yeah, and that's the one who he said it was the competition for the middle. So that says a lot to me. Let's move on to the wing backs now, and let's start off with Emerson Royale. 6s all round from us. I mean, he's been the butt of a lot of jokes this season. I think that it took him a while to bed in. It really did. I think his defensive display this season has actually been all right, but it's been going forward where it's been the kind of what's let him down this season. How many times this season has just like the opposition team just not cared about him, given him so much space on the right-hand side, and he's not been able to capitalise on that whatsoever. But having said that, the last 4 or 5 games of the season, he's actually improved massively. I think his passing range has improved massively, which we haven't seen all season. I think his defensive capabilities have been there all season. And I think he's provided us in the last 5 games with a lot more going forward. So there has been improvements in Emerson Royale. So we'll see how that one develops maybe for next season, unless Conte wants to get rid of him this summer. Yeah,
I think overall it's not been the best first season for Emerson, but look, he has had some big performances. He played both games against Liverpool, played away at the Etihad, putting in good performances in all those games, in big games. When we really needed him at the end of the season to really step up, when Dougherty got injured, I thought he came in and did fairly well. I thought when he started the season, he looked okay as well. I remember some really good performances like under Nuno when we played Villa at home. I thought he was brilliant, I remember, early in the season. So he has had some good games, but unfortunately, he's had a lot of adjusting to do, and especially going from a full-back to a wing-back, he's definitely been difficult him to adjust to the amount of tacking he's had to do, compared to being a wing-back, a full-back who's predominantly more defensive. I think that he's had a lot of adjusting to do under Conte. There were times this season where it did look like this signing was going to be a complete disaster, but thankfully he did turn it around, and it wasn't a complete disaster, but you can't say it was a massive success either. So I think a 6 out of 10 is fair.
Let's move on to Matt Dougherty. Sim gives him a 7. I gave him a 6. Started the season pretty much as he was last season. Under Nuno, didn't put in any real performances, and we thought, all right, here we go, more of the same from Matt Dougherty. Conte comes in, and still Matt Dougherty really couldn't do anything until that Leeds game. That Leeds game, he scores a goal, provided for us in terms of assists as well, played really well, and it seemed like to give him a lot of confidence, that Leeds game. And then he kind of picked up from there, but it was only 6 Premier League games he was in, and then he got injured. And those 6 Premier League games were actually very good from Matt Dougherty, and massive improvement. I mean, if those 6 games don't happen, I'm probably giving him a 3 or a 4. But because these 6 games do happen, and, you know, he's doing what he was doing for Wolves. He was arriving at the back post. He was putting good crosses in the box. He was being very creative, got a couple of goals to his name, a couple of assists to his name as well. But that injury, if that injury doesn't happen, you might even think I might have been thinking of giving him a 7 or something like that, because he was really on good form and showing good confidence. But because it was only 6 games, I had to stick with a 6.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for him that his season got cut short, but I thought for me, I thought the improvement was so big from earlier in the season and from his time under Jose, considering how much he was derided from the fan base, and considering how poor he was performing. It didn't look like there was any light left in the tunnel in terms of getting the best out of Dougherty and getting that Dougherty we saw from Wolves. But that period between February and late March, I thought he was exceptional. He wasn't just playing well for himself like Emerson was. I actually thought he was one of the best wing backs in the league during that period. He was like a golden a goal and assist machine at that time. He was absolutely fantastic. Like the games against Leeds and Everton, he really, and I think Newcastle as well, he really stepped up, playing at left wing back as well, and he was still producing the goods for us. I thought he was absolutely exceptional, and it was so unfortunate for him that he got that bad injury away at Villa, because I thought he was in line for a very, very strong end to the season, and we really started to see the player that we thought we bought last summer finally. But it was cruel. It was cruel what happened to him. But I'm going to give, for the improvement and for actually showing us what he can do, even if it was for a short amount of time, that's why I gave him a 7.
Yeah, the thing is, I just still remember those performances in the kind of January, December time in the cup games against Chelsea when he had to fill in at left wing back. I mean, it was just so, held us back so much. I mean, you just knew what he was going to do every time: get the ball, cut in, lose the ball, get the ball, cut in, lose the ball. And it was just so frustrating. But yeah, you got to give him credit for his last 6 games of the season that he did play really good performances. Let's move on to Ryan Sessenyon. 7s all round from us. Again, had his injury problems this season. Didn't get on the pitch as much as we wanted him to get on the pitch. But I think when he was on the pitch, he improved. Game on. I think defensively, done really well. Pocketed Mo Salah twice and Bukayo Saka as well. He's played against some real top players and stood up well to them. I think physically he's been growing this season as well. And he's providing for us at the other end of the pitch. It seems like he knows where to be. He's in the right place at the right time a lot of the time. Provided assists. I would like to see him get on the score sheet a few times. And I would like to see him have the confidence to take on his man consistently as well, which I don't think he has been doing. But definitely steps in the right direction with Sess, and I'm really seeing the start of his kind of growth at Tottenham Hotspur now.
Yeah, another player who's come a really long way. You know, early in the season, getting sent off against Moura, what was seen as a very big opportunity to him to show Conte what he can do, and he obviously, went really wrong. But I think he really started coming alive with that game at the Etihad early in the season. It was a game where everyone was worried about him. Well, sorry, first of all, the game against Liverpool early in the season where he pocketed Salah. Then the game at the Etihad, a lot of people were worried about Session in that game, but I thought he performed really, really well. Had the confidence to get forward and attack the space. And I think defensively he's been very, very strong, and he's improved as the season's gone on going forward as well, getting more assists, being more of a goal threat. And I think at 22 years of age, there's a lot more to come now for Ryan Session. He seems to have the confidence of the coaching staff. I think he's growing in confidence within himself. We've not, I don't think we've anywhere seen the best of Ryan Session since he's come to Tottenham, but we've seen glimpses of it finally this season, and I think he's had a very consistent end to the season as well. Again, the only thing holding him back really is injuries, which whenever he has an injury and comes back, seems to take a while for him a bit to kind of get going again. But this season, when he's been in full flight, he's been difficult to stop, and I think he's had a good season for him. I'm very happy for him, because at points again, it did seem like it was just never going to work out for him. But it seems like patience has been a virtue with Sessenyon.
Absolutely. Let's move on to his left wing back rival, which is Sergio Regulon. Sim gives him a 5. I gave him a 6. Had a lot of game time this season. He did actually add a few goals to his game this season, which he didn't have last year. Assists, he got the same number as he did last year, which was 3. It's a difficult one with Regulon, because I feel like he does get in good positions, and he does really kind of, he has that speed, but that's pretty much all he does. I mean, from what he's shown at Tottenham, he seems to be quite a limited footballer. He gets all hot and flustered every time he gets into a good position in terms of scoring goal, where it usually goes over the bar or wide. His crossing hasn't been particularly good this season as well. Defensively, he's been okay. But all in all, after that first season, I expected a lot more from Regulon, because when you cast your mind back to last year, he had a really strong start to his Tottenham career, then fell off in the back end of the season. And this year, I really expected him to kick on, and he just hasn't, to be honest. And I think when I'm comparing him to Ryan Sessenyon, I think Ryan Sessenyon looks the better player at the moment.
I think maybe a 5. I gave him a 5, maybe a bit harsh, but I do think it's just more from what I expected of him. Having had come from Sevilla with a big reputation, he was a brilliant left back. I do think he's being similar to Emerson. I do think he's more suited to being a left back than a left wing back. I think he's more suited to being a wing back who can get forward on the overlap with a winger ahead of him, as opposed to being a left wing back where there's a lot more responsibility to dominate dominate the wide areas and get forward as much as possible. I think he's got a few assists. He started life under Conte actually fairly well. He had that shocker against Everton, but then really, really improved. And I thought he was going to be very similar to maybe Hakimi, where he becomes a really good level left wing back. But unfortunately, it never really happened. And Sessenyon, I think, was the one who showed he's more suited to that role by the end of the season than Regulon. Doesn't mean to say the Regulon will never be suited to that role. I just think he's had struggle adapting to it, especially in later in the season, the second half of the season. I don't think he did as well as maybe he'd hoped. He's very good at attacking space. He's very good when we're on the counter attack and getting in those positions. And I think he has. I think his final ball's pretty decent. I don't have a big issue with his crossing. I think his shooting definitely has a lot to be desired. But I just for me, I felt my expectations of him were a lot more than maybe what he's shown. And look, it remains to be seen whether we'll sell him in the summer. But I wouldn't lose any sleep if we were to replace him with Kostic.
Yeah, I mean, if we were to replace him with Kostic, I'd be absolutely delighted. I really would be. But let's move on to the midfielders, and let's start off with Pierre-Emile Højbjerg. 8 all round from us. And actually, first half of the season, a lot of people were saying, we need to get Højbjerg out of the team, we need to replace him, this, that. And I think he's always put the effort and the desire on the football pitch. You always know what you're going to get with Højbjerg in terms of effort. But I think that first half of the season, his passing was left a bit wanting. He was pretty much trying to do a few roles on his own in the middle of the park under Nuno, which was obviously to his detriment. But I think ever since Conte has come in, I think he's been one of our most consistent performers. I've been waxing lyrical about him over the past 2-3 months, and I think that's what's really transformed his season. Like I said before, covers every blade of glass, super aggressive, interceptions and tackles in abundance, and he contributes going forward as well. So I really am happy with Højbjerg this season.
Yeah, I think first half he struggled for various reasons. He did have some good games. I remember, again, when we played Villa at home, I thought he was really good. When we played like Newcastle away, he played very well. But you got to remember early in the season, not only did we have Nuno, we also had Dele Alli playing in centre mid. We had Ndombele there. We had players who, obviously Skip was there as well, but we had players which weren't really doing the work to help him out in centre mid, and he definitely at times was overloaded and he was struggling and all of a sudden, when he's like running behind midfielders, getting past him, it looks like he's out of position and stuff. But actually, he's trying to cover for a lot of the holes that the rest of the midfield are leaving him. And once Conte came in, I thought he definitely improved massively. Obviously, the structure definitely helped him. He did go through an iffy period in January, which ended up with him being dropped. It definitely culminated with the game against I think Southampton at home, where he had an absolute shocker, and everyone's wondering what's going on with him. But he got dropped, and then we lost to Wolves, and everyone was like, okay, that didn't really help, so we brought him back in. And I think pretty much ever since that Wolves game, he hasn't had a bad game. I think he's really stepped up when we needed him. Obviously, Skip's had a big injury, so there's been a lot of pressure on him and Bentancur, but he's had I think he's been one of the best in the Premier League since that period. I think he's been absolutely brilliant, so consistent. I think winning the ball back, he's been brilliant. He works so hard. We all know that. But I think his quality on the ball has improved as well. I think his switches of play are becoming much more consistent than they were early in the season and last season. And I think he's, again, after a lot of people questioning him, is he good enough? I think he's proved he's more than good enough. And I think he's going to be a big, valuable player for us next season.
Absolutely. Let's move on to Rodrigo Bentancur. 8 all round from us. Obviously came in on the last day of the transfer window. He's played 17 games since then, grabbing himself 4 assists in the meantime as well. So I think that if we wouldn't have signed Rodrigo Bentancur, I don't think we would have finished top 4. I really believe that. With Skip, that was out injured, it would have been Højbjerg and Winks in there for the rest of the season. And what Bentancur has brought us, he's brought us calmness to the midfield. He's brought us passing ability. He's brought us a bit of, he's been the one really getting that ball and really passing it and making the play tick. And I think he's provided for us so much. Yes, there has been iffy games in there for him away at Old Trafford. I remember one. There's been a couple more in there as well. But every time he's had a bad game, he's responded to it and come back really strong. He's strong in the tackle. He's aggressive. He does quick passing, incisive play. The only thing I would say about him is that he kind of loses the ball in bad situations at times. But I do think in the latter stage of the season, he's improved on that. So I'm really loving Bentancur.
Yeah, one of his biggest assets, which we needed, was his composure, but it's also one of his biggest failures because he can also be overcomposed as well. Yeah. But I also felt like we did need a bit of composure in that central midfield. He definitely brings that, and I think he's been an excellent signing since January. It's not only helped him; he's helped the team massively with the workload. He's helped bring Hoibio to a new level since he's come in as well. I think his passing range is very good, and I want to see more of it. I don't think he uses it enough. I think he likes to keep things simple, but I think he's displayed that he's got good vision, he's got a good switch of play, he's got a very good long pass, a very good weight of pass as well. He's shown that with assists to Harry Kane, he's shown that with good through balls to Son and stuff like that, but he just doesn't use it enough, I feel, sometimes. He's extremely good at pressing, winning the ball back. I think he probably even outdoes Hoibio a lot of the time when it comes to tackles and interceptions. I think he does the dirty work extremely well, and it's helped the team massively having two workhorses in the centre to bring the most out of our front three as well. And I think Bentancur has been a massive reason for that. Obviously with Skip injury as well, it's been a massive help having him in the centre. I think he's barely had a bad game since he's come in. Even when he has had bad games like against Man United, I still think he's done a lot of good stuff even in those games. So I think for me Bentancur has been an excellent signing, and I'm looking forward to more of him next season. I'm hoping it's another one, Bentancur, where I feel like he can be brought onto a new level. I feel like he's playing very well right now, but I feel like more time under Conte, maybe they could unlock a new level out of him, because I feel like with his ability on the ball, he's got more to give than he's showing even.
Yeah, he's so silky on the ball.
I feel like when he gets a shot off, like he's always got good connection. He's always got good technique, but he doesn't do that enough.
Need to get him on the score sheet a few more times. And I think he'll do that next season, especially with a bit of a pre-season behind Conte. So yeah, big up Bentancur. Let's move on to Harry Winks. Unfortunately, threes all round from us. Not a good display from him this season. I did felt like when Conte came in, there was a bit of a raise in his game for a little bit, but then it was just reverting back to type really for Harry Winks. Unfortunately, our other midfielders in Skip, Bentancur and Hoibio are just so much better than him. And I'm not going to lay into him too much, but I'm just going to say, look, I don't think he's good enough for us anymore, and we should probably move him on this summer.
Yeah, I think again he's got too much of a victim mentality with him when it comes to Winks. Like I remember early in the season when Nuno was playing him in Conference League and playing other players in Premier League, he was saying things in the press like, "Oh, it's difficult because he puts me in the second team and it's hard to be motivated and things like that." It's like, well, you've got to show that you're good enough to be in the first team. You know, you can't just be handed to you. And you know, you got to, when you get the chance on that pitch, even if it's Conference League, you got to be the best player on that pitch, and maybe that can convince other managers that you're going to be you can really step up in those situations. And he just hasn't done that. To be fair to him, when we did play in a 3-5-2 in the early days under Conte, especially remember Liverpool at home, Leicester away, I thought he had brilliant games, and especially the Liverpool game, you're thinking, okay, maybe Conte found a role for him in the team, because I thought he was excellent in that game, but unfortunately never really lasted. And especially when we went to a 3-4-3, he doesn't really have the capacity to cover as much ground, I feel, that you need in that formation, and it leads to us getting overrun, because when you only have two in the centre, he doesn't have the cover which he does when we're playing a 3-5-2. And he definitely struggled when we changed formation. Didn't really get a look in really second half of the season. Maybe a few games played against Leeds in the 4-0 win, but didn't play too many other games. When he did come in, I believe he played against Middlesbrough. Did he play against Middlesbrough in that game?
Essentially.
Because Bentancur got injured, didn't he, against Burnley? And he came in on that game, and he
played Middlesbrough. But after that Middlesbrough game, he was just limited to 16 minutes max appearances.
So that goes to show how he was trusted, and I think it's probably time for him to move on now. It's been long enough. We're waiting for him to be consistent. Can't really get a run in the team. And I think it's best for everyone, best for him as well. Because I do think if he signs for a team who play with a bit more protection in the middle, but plays with a three in the middle, he could do well. But I think at Tottenham, it's not going to work.
Agreed. Let's move on to the last of the central midfielders, Ollie Skip. Sevens all round from us, and started the season really well. Under Nuno, who's probably one of our best players, if not the best player. I thought he was really good. Like I say, aggressive in the middle. And even there are times where Hoibio would drop deep and he would go forward, and then he would drop deep and Hoibio would go forward. And I think he did both roles pretty well. He didn't have that many games under Conte, which was a shame, because I thought he could have done a really good job for the team. His injury, obviously, if he didn't have his injury, I think we're probably talking about an 8 at least. That's how good he actually was. But unfortunately, he did get that injury. I'm excited to see what the future holds for Ollie Skip, because I think that first half of the season was that good. A really, really good prospect for us.
Yeah, and I'm so disappointed for him that he ended the season in January pretty much with that injury, because I thought he was having a really strong season in the first half of the season, and so consistent, so mature. Every manager seems to love him whenever they come in. I thought under Conte he was really good whenever he played. He was there for 10 games. I thought Conte was actually giving him more license to get forward. I thought Conte believed in him so much when he was there. Under Nuno, he was Nuno's most trusted player pretty much. Whenever Nuno took him out of the team, that's when we fell apart in games like at the Emirates.
Most trusted player, but doesn't play him in the North London derby.
Like, it was ridiculous. He was our best player under Nuno by far.
He was our best player that game as well when he came on.
Yeah, if he came on at half time, it completely stabilised Tottenham. So I think there's a lot more for Ollie Skip. Unfortunately, because his season ended so early, it's hard to give him more than a 7, because I don't think his first half season was a 10 out of 10. He was still pretty good though. But I can't wait to have him back next season, and I think he's going to have a really, really strong season. And I think this guy has so much potential at such a young age. I think he's performing at a really, really high level for his age, and I think this guy could go on to be a big player for Tottenham in the future, a very big player.
Let's move on to Seungmin Son, our player of the season, the player of the season. A big fat 10 from him. 30 goal contributions in the Premier League this season, 23 goals and 7 assists, Golden Boot winner. He's carried the team at times, especially at the beginning of the season when we weren't performing well. He would just be finding goals from anywhere, getting on the score sheet. Just unbelievable play from Sonny. The way he gets his goals, the XG to goals as well, absolutely unbelievable. And his best season as a Spurs shirt, probably his best season in his career. So big up Seungmin Son, and he's going to keep getting better and better. And I'm expecting a better season from him next year.
100%, brilliant season from Sonny. Look, when you're outscoring every single player in the Premier League except for one, you're doing something right. And he's been absolutely exceptional, I feel, this season with his finishing. He stepped up even more than he had last season. He's taken on more responsibility. Under Nuno, he was our only goal threat pretty much throughout the whole time Nuno was there. Under Conte, I felt even he had to find a new position, that left inside forward, and at times he was struggling, but he really got to grips with it by the end, and he even improved even more than he was at the start when I said that role maybe wasn't perfect for him. But I think maybe I was completely wrong about that, because he really adjusted to it brilliantly. And he's such a good player, Sonny. We're so lucky to have him. Left foot, right foot, doesn't matter to him. He's as strong on any foot. He's a threat in every game. His speed takes him over players, but his speed isn't even everything. His finishing ability is absolutely second to none. Yeah. One of the best finishers, if not the best finisher in the Premier League. So unbelievable season from Sonny. I don't think he could have done much more for the team than he did this season, so gave him a big fat 10.
Yeah, let's move on. And by the way, on Sonny, even in that period where people said he wasn't playing well, or that role didn't suit him and all that kind of stuff, he was still providing for the team week in, week out. That just shows how classy he actually is. So let's move on to Dejan Kulusevski, our ginger from Sweden. 9s all round. Came in with Bentancur, obviously last day of the window. Played 18 games, got 5 goals, got 8 assists, which is an unbelievable return. He is ready made for the Premier League. Mbappe said it to us when we were speaking to him when he first signed. He's strong, he's skillful, he's actually quick on the ball, deceptively quick on the ball. He's got an amazing pass, an amazing football IQ. He always has something like whenever he beats a man, he always does something positively to the team, to pass or to get a shot off on goal. I would like to see him get more goals, but I think that for his just coming into the Premier League at that age, he has been absolutely unbelievable. He's revolutionised our front three as well. When you remember the beginning of the season when we were playing Lucas Moura there, and Lucas Moura was having a good season, but Kulusevski has come in and just been head and shoulders above him, and I'm loving him, and he's a fan's favourite already. You're seeing Sweden flags all over stadiums and all over the away end when we go away. So Kulusevski has been absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, what a signing. One of the best attacking signings we made in a very, very long time. He's been incredible. He couldn't have done much better than he has from January to the end of the season. 5 goals, 8 assists. His dribbling ability. Defenders seem to struggle to deal with him, even though he's not like a Raheem Sterling or a Bukayo Saka where he completely burns them for pace. He just seems to have a way of using trickery in his armory to get past players and using his strength to hold them off as well. And then all of a sudden, once he's past someone, he can outpace them, and you're thinking, how's he doing that? Like, are the other players slow? But he just somehow has his long strides. He has this way about him of making it seem easy to beat players. And even in big games against Liverpool, I thought he stepped up, played really well. Against Man City, in his first ever start, he got on the score sheet and got an assist as well. I think his delivery is absolutely brilliant. I think he lays chances on a plate for his strike partners, and that's also one of the massive differences between him and someone like Lucas is when he gets in that position to really hurt the opposition. 9 times out of 10, he'll pick someone out. He'll pick the right opportunity, and he always has this way as well of picking a pass which no one expects, no one sees. Yet he's the one who sees it. Even when you're watching TV, it's like, where's he passing it to? And then you'll say, oh yeah, there you go. And then it's like a chance on goal. And it started even from his very first game against Brighton, where he made that pass to Bergwijn, which no one else saw except him. And I think he's been exceptional. His vision, I think his left foot is dynamite. I think he's got to score more goals with his left foot because I think he's got an exceptional left foot. His creativity, his dribbling ability, we've got a real find on our hands, a real player, and I can't wait for more of him next season.
Yeah, his ball carrying ability is absolutely second to none. I mean, remember that Liverpool game when they were penning us in a bit? They were penning us in, and the ball goes out to Kulusevski on the right hand side from Emerson, more likely. And like you're like, oh, what's Kulusevski got to do here? He's got 2 players around him. Whoop whoop, and they're gone. And he's just like he just takes it past them like they're not there. And like when he first came in here, there were like people were saying, oh, he's not quick. He looks too slow for the Premier League and all this stuff. And yeah, he looks slow, but then suddenly he just gets it past anyone just like that, and it's just unbelievable. It's like a magician, seriously.
Yeah. He's not slow, and he uses his strength to his advantage. He's deceptively quick with his big strides. He just looks slow, but he actually isn't slow at all. Yeah. And obviously he's not, as I said, he's not Saka fast, but he's still got a good pace about him, and it allows him to get away from defenders. And if you marry that with his final ball, I mean, it's just to die for.
Let's move on to Lucas Moura. 7s all round from us. Had a good start to the season. His first few months was probably one of Spurs' better players, but I still feel like he still leaves you wanting more all the time whenever you see him play. 2 goals this season, nowhere near enough. 3 last season, 4 the season before. I mean, for a right winger in the Premier League, you need to be providing way more goals than he's getting. Kulusevski has come in and done in kind of a few months what we've wanted Lucas Moura to do his whole Spurs career, pretty much.
And you did in 1 game against Norwich, 2 goals, right?
yeah, you're not wrong there. And I think that Lucas Moura, yeah, fine, he was good. He was one of our better players in the beginning of the season, but I think that says more about the team than it does actually about him. And more times than not, he just doesn't maybe pick the right options in terms of going forward. He doesn't think about the team. He thinks about himself, I think, a bit more than the team sometimes, except for the last game of the season. And I feel like he tries to do things all on his own sometimes, and that's a bit to his detriment. But when Conte comes in, well, especially when Kulusevski come in, Lucas Moura seemed to lose a lot of kind of his good play and his good kind of will to do anything good for the team. And every time he came on, I think that he didn't really have a good display. But last couple of games, he actually provided for us, and he did a good job trying to get Sonny that golden boot last game of the season.
Yeah, I don't think the problems that we had with Lucas are ever going to go away. I think, it's been a long enough time now to know that Lucas Moura is just the player he is. And that is a player with supreme ability. And it did help us in the first half of the season because there was no team cohesion. There was no unity in the team first half of the season. And because of his individual quality, he was able to get us into situations with his dribbling ability where we could get goals and we could get chances, and that definitely helped us. That probably led to him being one of our strongest players in the Premier League, because unlike players like Kane, who needs a functioning team around him, Lucas Moura doesn't necessarily need that to shine. But once Kulusevski came in and started games, that was it for him, because he got shown up for his lack of end product. Because Kulusevski was showing exactly that you don't need supreme, although he's got good dribbling ability. I don't think he's as good at dribbling as Lucas, and although he's got good pace, he's not as fast as Lucas. But what Kulusevski showed is that means nothing if you don't have the end product. And the amount of chances Kulusevski is laying on a plate for his teammates without the gifts that Lucas has in terms of physically, just goes to show the difference. And Lucas actually did pretty well when Conte first came. I remember he was that brilliant goal against Norwich. He had a great game against Crystal Palace, where he got a goal and an assist. And there were some games where you thought, oh, Lucas is actually very suited to Conte's system, but they all dried up. Yeah, all dried up. And then Kulu came in, and I don't know what happened to Lucas once Kulu came in, but he seemed to lose a lot of confidence or something, because usually when Lucas had a cameo, I remember even earlier in the season when Lucas wasn't starting but he had a cameo, he would come on and do something and look confident. But once Kulu was there, like, he looked really shocking when he came on. The ball was bouncing off him. I described him as a trampoline in the second half of the season because this is a player whose first touch is usually very, very good, but it just deserted him in the second half of the season. That was a massive shame. And we'll see what happens with him in summer. He is now coming up to 30, must be 30 or 29 or 30 now. So now's probably the time, if we're going to get a bit of money for him, to probably take it, because I think it's shown that we need players who are going to contribute in the final third. And I just think Lucas, unfortunately for him, doesn't do that anywhere near consistently enough. And that's just the reality we're going to have to live with. Having said that, I do still think he's got a lot of quality. So I don't think it's like a massive detriment having him in the team, because I do think there could be a role for him. But I would try and cash in on him if we could.
Yeah, I kind of feel like his time at Spurs is coming to an end, to be honest. I love the guy. He gave us some great memories. But I think we have to move on at some point. Steven Bergwijn up next. Sim gives him a 6. I gave him a 7. You're probably a bit more right on this one with Steven Bergwijn. I mean, we just couldn't get him on the pitch anywhere near as much as maybe I personally wanted. I feel like, especially after Kulu came in and all the cameos, I felt like he did well. And I felt every time he come on, he was providing for the team. Even before Kulu came in, it was actually when Conte came in, that West Ham game. Ever since then, he seemed to give really good cameos every time he come on. Didn't start any games under Conte, I don't think, maybe 1 or 2. And I felt like he always deserved more minutes than Lucas Moura in the back end of the season ever since Conte come in. But to be honest, I gave him a 7 just because of that Leicester game and the ending of that Leicester game, which was absolutely brilliant. A lot of people saying that was their moment of the season. 2 goals in 30 seconds or a minute to win us the game from 2-1 down was absolutely brilliant. Looks as though he is going to move on this summer, which I'm a bit upset about. But at the end of the day, if Conte can't get him on the pitch, then what's the point of him being here?
Yeah, and even under Nuno, he had actually, I remember, a decent start to the season, because I remember that game against Wolves, he played really well early in the season, and against Watford, I thought he had a decent game. But other than that, Nuno didn't really trust him to play in his team. Then Conte came in, and Conte saw him more as a number 9. And to be fair to him, a lot of times he was coming off the bench and making differences in his cameo appearances. So you got to give him credit for that. I did feel like whenever he started games, though, he never really convinced. Whenever starting, he did more convincing when he was coming off the bench. Obviously, there's 2 goals against Leicester. We're probably not in the Champions League without them. So it was a massive moment, and that was during a period where he really looked like he was making the difference when coming on. He did come on as well against Newcastle, rounded off, got a 5th goal, but unfortunately, it just wasn't enough from him this season. And that's what I feel like Conte feels the same way. And as much as I rate Bergwijn's quality, and I do think he's got a lot of quality and he'll be a success somewhere, unfortunately, I just don't think he's the right fit for Tottenham. It just hasn't worked out here, and I don't think he's done enough for me this season to that would make me think that we wouldn't accept the bid if it came in.
All right, and I think this is the last of the playing stock, which is Harry Kane. 8 all round from us. Obviously, first half of the season, he was absolutely shocking with 1 goal. Just terrible from Harry Kane. Probably his worst stint in a Spurs shirt since he's broken into the team. Not probably, definitely his worst stint in a Spurs shirt since he's broken into the team. But after Conte came, he was absolutely a player reborn, and he was sensational. And I think that when you're looking at the great season Son had, especially second half of the season, Kane was very central to why Son was so good. The way Kane was dropping deep and laying it on a plate for players going forward and getting in behind, I thought he was unbelievable. Got his scoring boots back on as well with 17 goals he ended up with, which was unbelievable. And I think he was probably, if you take look at the whole season as a whole, probably the best striker in the Premier League this season, even though how bad he was in the first half of the season. So props to Harry Kane, the way he turned it around. But I think the credit has got to go to Antonio Conte.
Yeah, for me, it was like first half of the season, he's probably like a 2 out of 10, but second half of the season, he's probably a 10 out of 10. So, you know, I'm not going to split it halfway. I'll give him an 8. I think he was absolutely exceptional once Conte came in. I did feel like in the first half of the season, that so many different factors led to him having a massive slump, like him trying to leave for Man City, the disappointment of losing the final to Italy as well. There was a hangover from that, not just from him. I felt a lot of the English players, there was a big hangover from that at the end of the first half of the season. The fact that we appointed Nuno, who wasn't a very exciting signing or aspiring signing, the fact that we did nothing to alleviate any of his concerns, which put him in a position where he wanted to leave in the summer, led to him being in a situation where it just wasn't working for him. And the fact that we weren't playing very well, I did think like if we wanted to see the best of Kane, he would have had to have been even better than he was last season, and he just wasn't motivated to be that good. And that's obviously down to him, but it's also down to the club. But once Conte came in, it did take a few weeks for him to get the goals and assists going, but you saw a complete difference in his performances just off the bat, let alone with goals and assists. And then once the goals started coming, they were never going to stop. And for him to finish on a total of 17 goals, given the fact he was on 1 goal before December, is an exceptional return. And he had an unbelievable second half of the season. I think assists as well. You got to remember, at different stages, he really stepped up. He had that period where he went 4 goals out a game, but he was getting he got 8 assists or something ridiculous during that period.
At that Man City game at the Etihad.
Man City game, he was best player on the pitch. Those big wins, like we beat Newcastle 5-1, we beat Villa 4-0. He didn't get 1 goal, but he was just laying on assists for everyone. Yeah. And then last 3 games of the season, when maybe the assists were drying up, then he stepped up with goals. He got the winner against Burnley, he scored 2 against Arsenal. We obviously got 1 against Norwich. So different times he was stepping up in different facets, and hopefully he's going to be motivated from the go next season. We can't afford for him to have a first half of the season like he did last season, but all signs are good. All the signs that he wants to stay and be motivated for Tottenham, and I'm very, very happy for it. He seems happy again. He seems motivated under a winning manager again, and definitely it's a lot of it's down to Conte, what he's done with Harry Kane. But Kane himself has brought on a new level to his game again. I feel like physically he seems to be better than he's ever been. So I think for me, any talk of him slowing down or not being as good as he was, I think he could be better than ever. So I'm looking forward to next season for Kane.
All right, and finally, the manager, the main man, Antonio Conte. Sim gives him a 9. I gave him a 10. He comes in when we're 9th in the league. We ended up qualifying for Champions League, which no Spurs fan thought that we could do. No fan in the Premier League thought we could do when Antonio Conte came in. He's improved every single player on that pitch. You look at Ben Davis, you look at Ryan Sessenyon, you look at Harry Kane, you look at Seungmin Son, the signings of Kulusevski and Bentancur. You look at Hoibio as well, who's massively improved. You look at Emerson, who's improved. You look at Dougherty, who's improved. Romero as well. Eric Dier. I mean, he's improved every single player. He's central to. He's the sole reason why we have literally improved so much this season. He's made us an outfit that that's hard to score against. 16 clean sheets for Hugo Lloris this season is a key, hallmark of what Antonio Conte has done this season. He's made us very hard to beat, and he's also on the other end of the pitch. We've scored an unbelievable amount of goals, top goal scorers in the Premier League since January, which is unbelievable. So that is why I've given him a big fat 10, because I think he's completely revolutionised our season.
He's done an exceptional job. He's been unbelievable since coming in. Not just the way he's revolutionised Kane, and he's brought even Son to a new level, and he's brought the team to a level where we can compete with the likes of Liverpool and Man City on the pitch, where before that was looked very, very unlikely. I think we struggled big time against these, especially away from home. When was the last time he got points away from home in any of those games? And he's brought on a new mentality to this team. But it's just the unity within the fan base, the results he's been getting, the coaching on the pitch in terms of bringing every player on and improving every single player, bringing new levels out of players like Dougherty, who no one thought possible, things like that. Getting the signings up to speed as soon as possible as well, and Bergwijn and Kulusevski, how he's integrated them into the team with minimal fuss. I think he's done an absolutely exceptional job getting us to the Champions League. No one would have thought possible that he would have done that. He didn't think it was possible, but he said he's not a magician, but he did a very good job of looking like one, because I think it was absolute magic for this season. The only reason I didn't give him a 10 is just because I felt that the FA Cup run could have done a bit better. We lost to Middlesbrough pretty disappointingly, so could have done a bit better with that one. So if we would have done a bit better in the Cup, obviously we lost to Moura as well, so that probably got us out of the Conference League. If we could have done a bit better there, I would have given him a 10, but I think for his performance in the league, he's done exceptional. Couldn't have done much more in that respect, and he's proven his elite credentials yet again, Antonio Conte. So what a job he's done. Massive season for him. I'm looking forward to next season with his signings, his squad, and what we can achieve. It's very, very exciting.
Yeah, and I love his press conference, how frank and open and honest he is about everything, and his passion on the sidelines is second to none. I mean, when you compare it to Nuno, when all you got was this.
Yeah.
To Antonio Conte, I mean, it's worlds apart, absolute worlds apart. And the guy is a world-class elite manager, and he's proving it, like you say, yet again. So all we need to do is back this guy. It looks as though we are backing him, and if we back him, who knows where this football club can go under his leadership. So big up to Antonio Conte for the way he's led us into the Champions League this season. That is our player ratings for the season. Let me know in the comment section below what your ratings are, and if you agree with our ratings as well. Thank you everyone for watching today. Like, subscribe and comment, and as always,
come on you Spurs.